Hey guys, welcome. Natalie Cutler-Welsh here. Welcome back to another episode of the Impact Entrepreneur series. Very excited to have you with us on the recording, on Facebook Live. I'm here with the amazing Tui Fleming. Hi, Tui.
Hello.
Hi. So cool. So you guys, this is the second season. First season, we focused mainly on mental health and happiness in New Zealand, and there's 8 amazing episodes for you to have a look at. And now we're moving into resilience and wellness. So I brought the lovely Tui Fleming here with one L, Fleming over here, Cutler-Welsh and Fleming, talking to you guys today about the concept of authentic leadership and knowing who you are. So this is what we're going to dive into, which is super cool. So Tui, I know that you're a strategist and a speaker. Before we dive into today's topic, can you give everyone a little bit of your backstory? What you're up to and how did you get here?
Yeah. Well, I never thought that I would be where I am today. And I think that's so much a part of your authenticity, is allowing your life and your story to unfold and being attuned to the opportunities that come up through your life. So my background is marketing. I was in marketing for about 15 years before I left work to have my first baby, Olive, and then I had Lily quite soon afterwards, so 2 little girls. And then I don't even kind of know how this happened, but I feel like, so many of us have this need, often unfulfilled need, to express ourselves somehow, often creatively, right? You do amazing creativities with your jackets and all sorts.
And my mom is a painter.
Yeah, totally. And I just started writing about my experiences of motherhood, much like you did with your book. And the words just kind of flowed. And so I kept writing whenever I was inspired to write. And as I would tell friends who were mums, they would say, "Oh my gosh, there's nothing quite like that book out there. You should publish it." And I thought, I'm not really a writer. I'm not an author, but okay. So I did that. And Dear Mummy, You're Important Too. It's all about permission to be yourself and potential, all the potential that we have, all the potential that we have as women, not just as mums. And I think for me, writing the book was an expression of who I am, and it was almost a pathfinder to find my voice. And then I published it and I released it, and the book became a business, and it kind of flowed from there. And I trained to be a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher, a strengths coach, a design facilitator. It was this journey that I was on, a personal journey to find myself, my authenticity, my voice, and that has grown into the business and the work that I do today.
I love that. And I love that when you're telling us about it, you're doing this. Because, I often talk about, right, life is a winding river, and sometimes you don't know where it's going, but it's kind of exciting just to see where it takes you.
I think that's really interesting, because the other thing is that I naturally, by default, am quite a structured person. I like structure, I like definitions, I like to kind of know where I'm going. But through this journey, I really have kind of become someone who I kind of say dances with life a little bit more, as opposed to being rigidly stuck and labeled.
Yeah.
So many of
and
us
how
are.
has that worked out for you? Because were you more kind of rigid before, and now
Totally.
This is a new phase and a new chapter?
Totally. And I feel different. I feel kind of more embodied in my body in terms of who I am, but also my potential. I feel freer in terms of free to explore whatever comes, because with our own businesses, for those impact entrepreneurs that are listening, we are often asked, what's your business model, what's your plan? And I don't have a business model, and I don't have a plan, and that's been great for me, because doors have opened in areas and in ways that I never could have planned for myself. So I feel a lot more fluid and a lot more free to explore.
And I know that, just to give people a little bit of an idea, it's so interesting, isn't it, how when you and I first met, and I was saying, who do you work with mainly? And you said, well, it's actually, you wrote this parenting book, but interestingly, men that have had kind of a wake-up call, and you can elaborate on that, within confidentiality and whatever. And then this morning, you've just come from being in a school where you're teaching about mindfulness.
Yep,
so
exactly. how does
It's like
that work?
just see what comes up, see what doors open.
Well, we're talking about authentic leadership, and my authentic journey is that I was kind of this career woman, then I became a mum, and so my writing was very much for mums. But my writing was for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of, I was figuring things out as I wrote, but the audience were mums. That was the stage of life that I was in. Then I went back to work part-time, and so then I kind of explored women and mothers returning to work. Then as I was working part-time, this is where some of the men learned what I was doing on the side, business on the side, and came to me and said, can you work with me? And I said, yeah, of course, totally. So that happened. And then, of course, being more and more engaged and involved at my children's school, they've heard about what I do as well and said, oh, could you come in and, do a little bit of a session with the class? So it's been really organic, but it's followed me and my journey and who I am. And I think that's really important because the work I do is in authenticity and authentic leadership. And so my business is very authentically unfolding according to where I'm going. And in doing that, I can be much more maybe reliable or credible or whatever the word you want to use in the advice and the offerings I give because I'm in it and I'm living that context at the time.
I think ideally in business, we do need to live, we need to embody and be what we're telling people to do.
Yeah, but lots of people stay in their business for so many years and they're talking the same story they've talked 5 or 10 years ago. So I think I agree with you completely, but it doesn't always happen.
Yeah. So for those of you guys that are joining us, or listening, comment below. Let us know, do you feel like you're just kind of, not in a bad way, but cruising down the river of life and just seeing what opportunities come? Or are you more like, this is where I'm going, nothing will stop me? And how is that working out for you? I don't really think there's a right or wrong way,
right.
But it's interesting to look at is this actually serving me? Is this working out for me or the people in my life? So have a little think about that.
Yeah.
I'd love to dive into the topic of authentic leadership. And I remember when we chose that topic, I suddenly thought, well, some people are going to think, but hang on a second, I'm not a leader. And I love the concept that, well, everyone is a leader, I think. So can we talk about leadership?
Yeah. And I think we often think, oh, I'm not a leader because of our upbringing and then, university or whatever training so many of us did. And then in the workplace, a leader typically and traditionally has been someone who leads a team or is kind of, in the spotlight doing some kind of visionary leadership. However, we all are leaders of our life. We lead our lives by waking up in the morning and deciding how we're going to show up today, by deciding where we're going to go and what we're going to do. That is leading your life. Or you might lead your family, or you might have some form of an influential role in your group of friends or in your community. There are so many different ways to be a leader. The most important thing is being authentic in the way that you lead yourself, in the way that you show up, and that's the work that I do.
I think that's so good. And especially I get excited when I hear you're going into schools, because I think starting with kids, while they're young, and they can be open to the fact that, oh my gosh, I am a leader just because I don't have a badge that I wear on my t-shirt. Yes. I'm still a leader. And I think instilling that concept and the idea of that opens doors for kids already. I think that's really amazing.
Yeah. And it takes a bit of time for them to not accept, but believe that they are leaders. That's so much of the work that I do and that we all need to do, is just unlocking those self-limiting beliefs and actually reframing them and, using that growth mindset that we all have the ability to have, so that we can, grow into who we are and who we have the potential to be.
And it's not even just kids. I got to correct myself here. Like there's adults, there's people that are, even grandparents that you might not even realize that they are they are leaders.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say grandparents, because when I first published my book, of course, I gave a copy to all of my family, and my granny read it and she said, oh, Tui, this isn't just for mums. This is for everybody. Everybody should read this, because it is, although I wrote it as a mum and for mums at the time, it is based on a lot of common sense, but standard show up, stand tall, be seen leadership practices. It really is for everyone. But you're right, if we can start young, then we're really kind of working at a young age to unlock those limiting beliefs, which form from the age of 2.
I know, so scary.
So the younger we can do it, but it's never too late.
It's never too late. And on that note, you guys, if you want to check out a little bit more, I did interview a lovely woman named Anne, and we talked about the importance of the first 1,000 days. And we talk a little bit more about that. But let's dive into resilience and wellness. Yeah. And I know because one of your top strengths is strategy, and so is mine, that I'd love you to elaborate on the concept of like knowing your strengths and how knowing that your strength can help you to be more resilient and well in your life.
Yeah. Well, and linking back to authenticity, so many people will say, oh, well, what is being authentic? How do I know who I am? And I think that's because we're caught up in this world today, which is full of social media and full of all of these comparison channels where we compare ourselves and we judge ourselves. There's the self-judgment, the inner critic, all of the voices and the stories that we tell ourselves in our head. And so being so consumed by that, how do we find our way through it? Yes, there are lots of different strategies, and one of them is strengths. And by strength, I don't mean, strong muscles. I mean the natural talents that you and we all have within us. And so I was trained through the Gallup organization. I went over to Sydney to do my training, and Gallup has been around for over 40 years. More than 20 million people have done their strengths assessment, and people who know and who use their strengths every day are 3 times more likely to report having an excellent quality of life. So strengths, discovery and exploration, and then strengths-based leadership is a way to finding your authentic power almost, because these talents are our potential. Our potential is our power. So when you know what your natural talents are and you invest in them to grow them into strengths, then you can kind of, show up, stand tall, and be seen for the power and the potential and the unique gifts that you have to offer in the world. And also you grow this belief in yourself, which helps to tame that inner critic and quieten, some of the more negative stories in your life. So that is just one strategy, but it's one that I find to be fantastic, especially because it has really concrete research around it. The number of people that have done it, and the change in people's lives because of it, particularly around well-being. If you're reporting having an excellent quality of life 3 times over, you're 3 times more likely. That says something. And when you are in a experience of, we call it peak performance. So when you're using your strengths and feeling fantastic, like you're firing on all cylinders and you're feeling, just absolutely lit up, we call that a moment or an experience of peak performance. And what do you know? Peak performance feels good. Yeah. So it absolutely links through to your well-being.
If you guys haven't heard of Strength Finders before, well, if you've heard me, you probably know that I love them. And so when Tui and I met for the first time in person, we were like, blah, 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 Strength Finder, growth mindset, fixed mindset. It was so much fun. So if you guys haven't heard of Strength Finder, I always say to people, it's a thing. I didn't create it. Like, it's a thing. Yeah. You just said how legit it was. But correct me if I'm wrong. But so the idea, you guys, is that every person has, I think it's 34. Yes. 34 strengths within them. Like, we all have these 34 strengths. But they kind of, as I say, there's some that kind of bubble to the top, or there's some that really stand out. They're all in order. You can actually, it's not even very much. I think it's about $50 or $90 to get the list of your 34 strengths. And you do this by doing a half an hour little test. In this scenario, would you do this or that? In this scenario, would you do this or that? And you just answer it, and it gives you this report. You can elaborate on that. But it's super cool because when you look at it, and not just the words, but you read about what those words mean, and you're not thinking, oh, they're putting me in a box and this is defining who I am. Okay, we did a previous episode all about identity. This is not fixing your identity, but it's helping you to understand your natural way of being and your natural areas of genius. And I love it because it helps people to navigate when you're operating in your zone of genius, using your strengths. You really are happier. So I'll just give you guys an idea. So for me, mine were something like this in this order: strategy, number 1, futuristic, looking at the big picture, activator, making things happen. So you're going, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? Communication, talking, definitely. And then individualization, which means actually treating people equal but not the same. So those were my top 5. And then number 6 actually was woo, which means winning others over. You got woo?
No, it's about number 8 or 9.
Everyone's got weird. But it was interesting when I looked at mine, I'm like, oh my God, I don't have anything soft and fluffy until like number 15.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's really, really cool to see that. And then for some people, and I know you've got a story about this, I don't know if we have time to go into it, but when people realize that those are their strengths, they can actually navigate not just their daily life, but their career, so that they're doing something that really fills them up.
Yeah.
So do you want to elaborate on that?
I love how you say that it doesn't define your identity. It actually expands your identity. And if you're feeling, I often use it, people will often come to me at times where they're in a crossroads in life. So it might be mums looking to return to work, but what value do I have now that I've left the workplace for so long? For the men that came to me, a couple of men had very serious health trauma, and it affected their work and their business, which was their identity. Their kind of business was who they were. Also, children, I'm working, as you said, at school at the moment with some 11 and 12-year-olds who are at that intermediate age, which is a real time of transition. And what all of this points to is not a loss of identity, but just that kind of period of life, or that moment where you're kind of a little bit unsettled, or you're stumbling, or you're kind of not quite sure where to head or who you are. What strengths does, as I just said, is it expands your identity, and the way that it does it is it gives you a language, and it gives you words to just kind of really connect to and go, yes, yeah, that's me, that is me. And it absolutely doesn't pigeonhole you or label you, because as Nat said, there are 34 natural talents that we all have to a certain degree. I recommend that you start with your top 5, because guess what we do as humans? We'll go all the way down to 34 and go, oh no, oh my God, why is that so low for me? And that's not good. It's about focusing on what's strong, not what's wrong.
Nice.
Yeah,
absolutely. Write that down.
And so what was your question about, career, how it can work from a career perspective? Well, hopefully he won't mind me saying this, but actually I did some strengths coaching with my husband. When I first trained, obviously you've got to kind of do your practice. And he was initially, resistant to this kind of thing, but, help a wife out. So we sat down and literally ended up sitting down for about 2 hours, had a couple of glasses of wine. He had wanted to move out of a sales role and really wanted to get more into a strategic role. But I don't know whether it was a limiting belief or not, but certainly didn't have maybe the belief, maybe the courage to kind of go, yeah, I've totally got this. But what do you know? Strategy was in his top 5. And so he was then presented an opportunity later that year to go for a newly created role, which was extremely strategic. He went for it knowing that this is one of his natural talents. And by the way, we kind of have been using words talents and strengths interchangeably here. But what your assessment gives you is your natural talent. Then when you invest in your talent, when you create opportunities every day to use your talents, then they grow into strength. So it's very much about strengths development. Okay. So for him, he knew this was a natural talent. He wanted the opportunity to do what he does best, which is actually strategy. Went for the job, got the job, and is now in a fantastic role, which he loves. He wakes up every day and wants to be doing it. Feels like he's in this environment of peak performance every day, which makes him feel fantastic, which helps us from a marriage perspective.
I was going to say, it trickles down into the family.
I'm firing, exactly. But yeah, back to the kids as well. There is a specific assessment that you can do for 10 to 14-year-olds, and then 15 and up. Students and kids will do the full strengths assessment, which you and I have done. So it's very accessible. And yeah, as you say, it's available online. Anybody can do it. What I do is I then do strengths coaching to help people really unpack the information in the report and mine. It's almost like I've got my kind of light on and I'm mining for all of the gold within the talents and strengths. And I also pair it with desire mapping, which is very much about kind of getting to the heart of how you want to feel and who you want to be, because there's your talents and strengths, that's great, but what about your vision, and what about how you really want to feel? When you combine those two things together, that's incredibly powerful. And then I use my yoga and meditation to install new beliefs in people so that they can truly believe in themselves when they show up, stand tall, and be seen for who they are and who they really want to be.
That is so amazing. And I think it's such a good combination, because if people just go, they get a piece of paper and they're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this is who I am. Well, it's not who you are.
No.
These are your talents, and you
It's
can
who
work.
you can be. It's
Yeah.
all of your potential. So then how do I unpack and unlock that potential? And how am I going to aim those talents towards current challenges or goals that I have, goals including how you really want to feel. So then you're aiming your strengths towards your desires. And that whole package is really quite transformative.
Can you give us your top 5 or thereabouts, just to give, because I want people to start bubbling on what some of the names of some of these? Yeah.
So my number 1 is relator. So whereas you had woo as number 6 and my husband has woo as number 1, woo as number 1. My number 1 is relator. So I prefer to have a small group of friends or small group conversations and go really, really deep with people, which is why I love coaching, because it's one-on-one and we get in really deep.
Yeah.
That's my number 1. Number 2 is maximizer, which is about taking people from good to great and is very much about people's strengths and potential. So perfect. Number 3 is harmony. I really don't like conflict, and within myself and for other people, I really want people to feel that they are aligned and that they feel the sense of harmony with who they are. So again, perfect from the perspective of authentic leadership. And then I have, what's next? Relator, maximizer, harmony, positivity. So that's my kind of enthusiasm and positive outlook, and then responsibility, which is being a loyal, dependable person. People feel that they can trust me. I hold people's confidence, again, great from a coaching perspective. But for myself, it's great too, because someone with the responsibility talent theme really does what they say they're going to do. So, as you know, being an entrepreneur, that can be really hard, but I can set a goal and then, because of my natural talent for wanting to be committed and do what I say I'm going to do, I can follow that through.
Nice. I love it. So you guys, these are just some of the words. There's obviously a lot more, but just so you get the idea. And I think just highlighting, none of them are better than each other, but it is quite fascinating when you see them and you're like, oh, that makes sense. Well, no wonder I love coaching one-on-one, because the later, and all that. I think it is so fascinating. And for me, I love them because I have a team. I have a team of women that I work with in my doTERRA business, and obviously they're all different personalities. And if I know their strengths, I can mentor them equal, but not the same. I can mentor them. So one of my women, harmony is really high for her. And so any sort of conflict, she's super uncomfortable, but there's going to be times when she, someone in her team or the other team has a little bit of a niggle with someone else or a customer or whatever. And so I need to make sure that I mentor her, knowing that harmony is really important to her, not rock the boat, but still it help her step up her leadership to deal with things that arise. So it's such a fascinating tool if you do manage a team of people, to not only understand yourself, but to understand the people that you're working with, or employees or whoever it is. It's
and your children. And the fantastic, amazing, quite mind-blowing thing is that because there are 34 different talent themes, there's a 1 in 33 million chance that someone else will have the exact same top 5 in the same order as you. And then there's a 1 in 278,000 chance that someone else will have the same top 5 in any order as you. So why I love it is because, it gets lumped in this box of personality test, but it's not really. It's so very, very, very bespoke and unique because, of those ratios. And the report that you get out of it is not, oh, you're a relator, so you are this. It'll give you the general descriptions on each of the themes, but then based on how you've answered the assessment, it then gives you another report, which is completely specific to you. Yeah. So I said that my husband and
which is why you need Turi to help you go through it, because it sounds very confusing.
But it's not confusing. It's a door that is wide open for exploration. Yeah. So if you really want to explore who you are, particularly if you're in a crossroads, you're not sure, or if you just want more clarity in your life, it's a fantastic tool, especially paired with the desire mapping, because that is also about getting clear on how you want to feel.
I love that. So it's like one of my natural gifts and talents, and then, but what do I want to create? Exactly. How do I want to feel?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So good. So you guys, resilience and wellness. I would love to see, if you're thinking of maybe what 1 or 2 of your own strengths are based on what we've said, pop it in a comment below. We'd love to see. If you go ahead and do the Strengths Finder, we would love to hear about it. So I will make an effort to pop a link in here so that you can easily find it. It's just you can Google it, but I'll find it and I'll put the link below. So I wanted to make sure. So how can people get in touch with you if they're feeling like, oh my God, this is so interesting, I want to learn more? Where can they find you on social media or online?
Yeah, cool. So my website, tuifleming.com, Fleming with
one L.
One M.
One M. And one L, by the way.
Just Google. tuifleming.com is my website, and that gives you information on the kinds of services that I offer. But I really do anything. You know, I've listed a few things, a few packages that I can do, but often we end up kind of going fairly bespoke with people. Social media, Facebook, Tui Fleming Official, Instagram, just Tui Fleming, and I think that's all. I think they're all the places I am. I'm on LinkedIn as well, but
yeah, I love LinkedIn. One of the things I do on this is I like to do a little shout out or shine the light on it. Is there a certain charity or organization that you feel strongly about?
Yeah, there are so many out there. There are so many deserving ones. But for me, in the work that I do, I'm most closely aligned with the Mental Health Foundation of New Zealand, and specifically youth suicide. I think, you know, we are top in the world, which is just so tragic for suicide and youth suicide in particular. And the work that I do is about authenticity. It's about having the courage and the compassion for yourself to be able to show up as who you are and stand tall and own who you are and be seen. And I think for so many people, they don't feel like they are seen or they can be seen. And tragically, for some, you know, that ends up in suicide. So for me, that's a really strong calling, is to help in some way. And I just spoke recently actually at a youth leaders forum, and instead of taking the speaker fee, we donated or they donated on my behalf to youth suicide. So that for me is a really strong one.
Nice. That's really good. So you guys, resilience and wellness, right? This is a massive topic. We just chose this one area to dive into. But I think, you know, in life does throw you curveballs and challenges, and having some tools in your tool belt, like we talked about today with the strength finders and the desire mapping, which I think is really cool, can definitely help. So do you have do you have a little tool, or how do they find out more about the desire mapping?
So there's a little bit more information on my site around that. Danielle Laporte is the person who founded and created Desire Mapping. So you can also check out her website, daniellelaporte.com. And yeah, so either through me or through her. She's also, you know, got all the social channels. Very inspiring person. So I'd highly recommend that.
Awesome. Thanks you guys for listening today. And we'll catch you next time on the episode of Impact Entrepreneurs.
Awesome.
See ya.